sweetie. We want you to have lots of fun here. Why don't you go out and make some friends?
Right, get outside and play, son. Like normal kids.
We've got some money for you on the kitchen counter, sweetie. Just be back before it gets dark.
Yeah, we love you too.
In South Park's role-playing video game Stick of Truth, we are introduced to the main character, the player's character, with silence. Straight away, creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone satirize this now fairly common video game trope, the silent protagonist. Disney Animation Studios have had only one silent protagonist of their own, Dumbo. But why make him silent? What does this mean for how we come to view the character? A silent protagonist is a main character, usually from a video game, who has no dialogue throughout the story. It's used for various reasons, from projecting a sense of mystery, to enabling the player to identify fully with the character, to the simple fact that dialogue might not be necessary. Many believe the trope originated from the role-playing pen and paper game Dungeons and Dragons, when players are given characters to act as, determining behaviour and decisions. When the gaming industry started to take video form, protagonists like Link from The Legend of Zelda were mute, frankly because it was easier. It saved tons of data and it wasn't really important for the story. But as video games developed, the reasoning behind the use of a silent protagonist changed. Games like Portal and BioShock introduced them for more progressive purposes. The developers figured that immersing the player fully into the story as the protagonist meant giving them full autonomy over behaviour and personality. Just as in Dungeons and Dragons, the more the player can relate to their character, the more invested they become in the story. Dumbo is the only lead character of Disney's feature animations with nothing to say, introducing the silent protagonist to the animation world over 30 years before Dungeons & Dragons was first published. It's used effectively for 3 reasons. 1. The side characters narrate the story for Dumbo. In the first scene featuring Dumbo, other elephants ridicule and humiliate him, immediately introducing the antagonistic theme for the film. Then, Timothy Q. Mouse appears as a Jiminy Cricket guidance element, using a colloquial narrative monologue to continue the plot alongside Dumbo. 2. Music speaks louder. One of the toughest emotional moments in any animation to date is Dumbo's scene with his incarcerated mother. For as long as there has been music, it's been used to tell stories. The music in Dumbo is no exception, accompanying the scene with the most heartbreaking lullaby. What good would words do for such a tender and personal scene to which I reckon everyone can relate? 3. To connect with Dumbo. In RPGs, silent protagonists are used to develop strong connections between the player and their character. And just like in RPGs, leaving Dumbo mute enables the audience to share the character's experience as their own. In turn, we can project our own personality or thoughts through Dumbo instead of dialogue. What he feels, we feel. With all the strengths that silent protagonists in video games have in developing an immersive character identity, one problem is often raised. Complete silence isn't realistic. That's the thing about Dumbo that differs from most stories. While a silent protagonist in video games may lead to an awkward, unrealistic experience for the player, Disney doesn't need to prove authentic dialogue with an infant elephant. Some animals in the film have the ability to speak, while others can't. But in Dumbo's case, we don't even for a second question his silence. The film is filled with loud characters, clowns, crows, tumbling elephants and circus crowds, yet somehow we remain transfixed by this completely voiceless character. Why? Because in a sea of yelling and cackling, we look to the odd one out. In the rage and the chaos of a circus performance, we are Dumbo, the observers of our own experience. While the plot narrates itself around him, Dumbo is a vessel on our path from beginning to end, from birth to fame, from elephant to flying elephant. The silent protagonist can have an unnatural quality to its use, but what it lacks in authenticity, it gains in power to the audience. The power that speaks to us not just as onlookers, but as participants of the story created and presented for us.